Cultural appropriation is the biggest waste of time argument that I'm seeing, now. Uh, like one of the dumbest things ever. Like because you see people arguing over things that have origins and places that you don't even realize. You know, like the things that you associate, some things that you associate with being European, had their start in what we call the Middle East. Some things that you think are Western started in India. Some things that you think started in China started in somewhere else. You know, uh, and then you have people that migrate from one place and they take it to another place, and they influence the people that they in the new place they end up, and they take on that custom, and then becomes their thing. And then time passes, and people don't even realize where it came from, because how long it is ingrained into their culture. Takes the Scottish bagpipes that came from the Middle East, and it was brought into uh, Scotland, thousands of years ago, and it's associated with their culture, but it didn't start there. It started in the Middle East. Shit, same thing with the wheel. The wheel was not a European invention. They was using that in Mesopotamia. This is something that people was using, you know, for what is it? I think they used it for farming. They used it for different uses than what you know it became used later on. People started using the wheel as a method of transportation later on. Uh, but it started in the Middle East. So there's so many things that people pick up through trade, especially back then. Back in ancient times, people would pick up other things in other cultures through trade. Linguistics. They pick up other words from another group of people through war or trade or whatever. What a meeting. You know, carrying. People carry things from foreign places, and then when it lands in a whole different place, that they have to come up. Or they have to pick up that terminology and understand it, and ingrain it in their culture. And that's lost on us now, because the because we're under a world of post colonization, when not everybody's nationalized, and everybody wants to have their identity, and everybody wants to believe certain things are just they're owned by their culture. They don't realize that before all this nationalization, what I'm saying, things were moving a lot more freely. Cultural ideas move back and forth, and people weren't rigid. People weren't just like, oh, I'm just Russian, so I'm just gonna like just do Russian stuff over here, and we're not gonna do anything else. Like, no, they were trading with other groups of people. People weren't just like, oh, I'm just Ottoman, or oh, I'm just Arab, oh, I'm just, what I'm saying, I'm a, I'm an Egyptian, oh, I'm just Italian or whatever. Like, or before they even called themselves Italian, like people weren't in these rigid mentalities like that. Uh, people move back and forth, and people would digest different ideas through trade. So, I just say all this to say that we have to, you know, realize that, you know, these conversations can be, it started off, I guess, as a good thing. You know what I'm saying? You don't want like, people forgetting, maybe, they're talking a certain way, like, they might talk a certain way, and they might forget that it's quote unquote black way of talking, right? That's the kind of the main way that I see people complaining about cultural appropriation. They're saying that white people are talking in a certain way, and not realizing that they're talking in a black accent. But that's that's gonna happen. You have some white person from like Minnesota or somewhere. Saying they hear something on TikTok and they take to it, and or they hear people talking a certain way on the internet. And they start copying it, and they don't realize what's going on. They might not be facetious, if I'm saying the word right. They might not have a type of malice, a malicious a malicious mindset about it. They're just talking the way that they think is cool. And through hip hop and all that, uh the black scent is is popularized. So a lot of young people in general, are going to gravitate to what's popular, and so they gravitate to talking that way. And they might not realize where it comes from because they're not living around black people like that. Some of them, they pick up that because they grow up around black people, so they end up talking that way to fit in. They're not doing it to be like, you know, to mock the way black people talk or whatever. And so some people, are still like, oh my gosh, some people get up in arms, and they think it's a big deal that other people talking in a hood accent, and they're not black. And some people don't like seeing white people wear braids, like see them wear box braids or cornrows or whatever. Some people don't like seeing what you call it. They don't like seeing white people get lip fillers. I don't like seeing some of it because they look stupid as hell. Um, but whatever. Uh, but like I said, it's just like you gotta realize that we're in the modern times, or not even. We're like in a postmodern world. You know what I'm saying? Like a bunch of different things are circulating around online, and people are picking up on a lot of different things. You know what I'm saying? Like what makes you think that you can really stop people from looking at a certain culture and not wanting to emulate it? Like what makes you think you can gatekeep that? What makes you think you can stop people from wanting to talk a certain way for real? All right, you can't do nothing. Culture appropriation, all that talk is just it's a also big waste of time. What I'm saying? It's another fake argument black people want to have. What I'm saying? Just to pass time. There's always arguments that just like, I don't know, that they're like circulatory arguments that you're just gonna keep having. What I'm saying? It's not gonna You're not gonna get anywhere with it because you're not gonna like force people to do any of these things. You're not gonna be able to beat people out of talking in a certain accent or wearing their hair a certain way or whatever. You're not gonna stop them. So I say, what's the point? What I'm saying? We have other issues, bigger issues to be worried about. There's bigger fish in the sea to be looking after. And cultural appropriation is a little fish in a big ocean of bigger issues to be worried about. So I say drop the cultural appropriation uh, stuff, and let's move on to something more important. Because God knows there's a whole lot more stuff out there that we got to focus on as a people. And yeah, like I said to everybody else, if you're Hispanic and you're crying about somebody, wearing a sombrero, or what I'm saying, you're Arab and you're crying about somebody wearing a turban, or you're, I don't know, you're native and you're crying about somebody having two braids, the pigtail braids, or you know what I'm saying, like stuff like that. It's like, come on, let's be for real. And most people don't know it, like especially in America, like here everything is just commercialized, so we don't really know culture like that. You know what I'm saying? Like we're not like other cultures where they're like ancient people and stuff like that. We're all living in a country where everything is commercialized and sped up, and you know, so we don't really have we're not like understanding like ancient cultures of people and things like that. We're not understanding like you know uh, how people. We're not. What am I trying to? We're not trying. We're not a group of people that are like an ancient people that or people outside of Native Americans, like, but we're not like an ancient group of people and the people that understand like you know uh culture, if if I'm making any sense. Like, we don't understand. What am I trying to say? We don't understand like what it is to be like a group of people from like a homogenous ancient culture. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're a bunch of people from different backgrounds that are put into a country that we have to have one mindset under, just like the general American, you know, mindset. And, our culture is basically um, mass production of things and, buying things. And, so like we don't understand, what it is to be an ancient group of people. You know what I mean? Like, we're not having like, oh, back in like, our ancestor from, the year 500 was saying this, and then, 500 years later, the Americans were doing this. Like, we don't have that, you know. We're just a bunch of new people from a whole bunch of different backgrounds, slammed in together, and we're trying to figure it out, and we're trying to fight for our quote unquote American identity. All right, so you know, complaining about cultural appropriation in a country like this is not. It's not. It's not really gonna work because who are we? We're a bunch of different. We're everybody. Everybody's over here. Everybody's over here, and we need to learn how to live amongst each other and take what we can from each other and respect each other and live us amongst each other. You know what I'm saying? You can't be bigoted. What's the point of being bigoted in a country like this? Whether you like it or not, we live in a country together. That just is what it is. You know what I'm saying? If you want to go to a homogenous country, go to a homogenous country. This country was not a homogenous country from the beginning. There was never a point in time where this land was uninhabited and then white people just came here and lived here. They wanted to be that. They want to create a history where white people just landed here and they just made a country and nothing was going on over here. But that is not the case. You know what I'm saying? Like, there were people here. And white people took some of the things from there, the way that natives lived, and many of them adopted that to build off of. And they learned how the native people farmed and things like that, and they used that to better their lives. All right, so from the beginning, you have people learning how to use other group or to adapt to another group of people, and that's what humanity is about. We adapt to different situations, and we use that to help improve our situation. That's what it's about. It's just the as long as we respect each other, uh, you know As long as we respect each other and we move in a way where we don't screw over other groups of people, we try to help, keep everything balanced and, make this planet, you know, habitable for everybody to the best of our abilities, you know, then things will run smoother and you won't have people feeling, you won't have people crying about injustice. That's what it's all about. We just got to make sure we make things run smoother. Don't screw over other people. Don't try to, give people bad stereotypes. And and some people earn their stereotypes. So if you're a group of people's earning bad stereotypes for their behavior, you got to work on that, and you got to improve on the things in your culture and learn to adapt from that, so you can be a better group of people. And we just got to realize in our society that you know like I said, humans, that's what we are. We are going to adapt to different situations. Culture is not stagnant. We're not going to stay the same. Being Chinese in 1900 is not going to be the same as being Chinese in 2000. Like people are going to constantly adapt and shift and learn new ideas and talk in a different way and eat in a different way and all this type of stuff. So like, you can't stay in the same box and try to preserve the same exact thing. It's going to change. You know what I'm saying? Time doesn't stand still. Ideas flow and things change. And that's all I got to say. Like this whole cultural appropriation stuff is, what I'm saying. I mean, it seems like it comes from a good place, but it's a you're misunderstanding how, human beings are. We're not going to stay the same. And people look to find out what's popular. People want to find out what's popular and they want to mimic that. That's how humans are. You know what I'm saying? Most people are going to be followers and they want to follow the current trend and they want to follow what they see in the movies and in the radio, on the radio and whatever, social media and all that. And, they're going to take that, they're going to copy those mannerisms and wear whatever is trending and do all that type of stuff. That's where we're at in the world. In the current postmodern world, or just in the modern world too. Like, people follow the trends that come from what's pushed in popular culture. They have been doing that for like a century, from the 20th century on. So, it's nothing new, but now everybody wants, or not everybody, certain people want to be, uptight and make it seem like, they're doing something and, gatekeeping and all that. It's like, you can't gatekeep. Get serious, man. You don't control nothing. You know what I'm saying? You're not the people that control stuff and can limit people. So it's like, just, worry about the things that matter. If you want to do something, get your weight up, what I'm saying? Start owning some big businesses and then you can start controlling, whatever you want to control and to a certain extent, you know what I'm saying? And you can actually make profit off of your culture instead of complaining. If you mean that's what you want to do, then do that. And that's all I got.